Ontario, and every day I'm trying to share science-based psychology in my channel to help you, to support you to cope with challenges you might be experiencing, to increase your awareness. And I'm also answering to your questions here that you are leaving. Today we'll be discussing about emotional dysregulation when emotions take over, and what you can do in order to support yourself if you are experiencing similar challenges. If you haven't subscribed, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you can see whenever I'm sharing new content here. Have you ever felt completely taken over by an emotion? Maybe there are some emotions that can be easily handled by others, but for you it might feel as an extreme pain, like intensity came from nowhere, and by the time you realize what's happening, you had already said something you regretted, or shut down completely, or feel overwhelmed, numbed by feelings that didn't match the situation. And it can be very challenging to stay rational during these times when you are being triggered. If that resonates, you are not alone, and there is a name for what you are experiencing. And so today we will be speaking about these challenges that are called emotional dysregulation, when emotions take over. And you will learn what emotion dysregulation is and how to recognize it, and biosocial theory, and why some people are more emotionally sensitive than others. When we will be also discussing about window of tolerance and how to expand it, and I will be sharing some certain tools, strategies that you can use for high intensity emotion states. So let's begin. And emotion dysregulation refers to difficulty modulating, regulating emotional experiences and expression in ways that are contextually appropriate and socially acceptable. So it exists on a spectrum. All humans experience dysregulation. Sometimes it can be extreme fatigue due to major loss, traumas, overwhelming threat. And for some people, dysregulation can be caused by frequent, intense, and difficult recover from trauma, and it can also have some neurobiological roots, and it significantly interferes with relationships, work, and quality of life. So key signs of emotional dysregulation include emotional reactions that seem disappropriate for the trigger, and it can be slow return to a baseline after emotional activation, difficulties determining what you are feeling, being overwhelmed to and emotions that others seem to handle well with relative ease, and emotional reactions that feel out of your control. So if to look to by if to look at biosocial theory, Marshall Linen's biosocial theory is one of the most useful frameworks for understanding and why some people struggle so much with emotional regulation. And it identifies two interacting factors. First of them is biological emotional sensitivity and an invalidating environment. And biological sensitivity includes some people who were born with a more sensitive nervous system, and emotions might rise faster, reach higher intensity, and take longer to return to baseline. And this is not a choice, it's a neurobiological reason. You cannot choose whether to have it or not to have it. And invalidating environments can trigger these responses. If you are in places, environments that consistently communicate that your emotional experience is wrong, where you are being constantly criticized, and if you are being told that this is inappropriate or shameful, uh, sentences such as "you are too sensitive, stop crying, you are overreacting, don't be so dramatic," this can also increase the symptoms and challenges that you are having. And when it's combined, sensitive nervous system plus invalidating environment or trauma or adverse experiences, stress, this means that person never learns to trust or regulate their emotional experiences, because they are told their feelings are wrong, and the feelings don't get away. And uh, it's not a weakness, it's an understandable outcome of a specific combination of biology and experience. And emotional dysregulation can be seen also if a person is having ADHD symptoms, such as emotional dysregulation is increasingly recognized as a core feature, and not just inattention or hyperactivity. And rejection sensitive dysphoria, extreme emotional pain that is triggered by perceived rejection, is particularly common and impactful. And it can be seen also if a person is experiencing depression symptoms. It can have difficulty experiencing positive emotions, emotional blunting, or paradoxically extreme emotional reactivity and irritability. And it's also seen with anxiety, when a heightened emotional reactivity to threat cues, and difficulty down-regulating fear and worry. And also, if a person has experienced PTSD, it can be linked to traumatic dysregulation, where hyperactivity to trauma-related triggers, alternating with emotional numbing and shutdown. And understanding that dysregulation is a diagnostic process, not just a feature of one's extreme condition, and normalizing experience, and it points towards shared solutions. And when it comes to window of tolerance, it's one of most clinically used concepts in all trauma and emotional regulation work. A window of tolerance was developed by psychiatrist Siegel, and it describes optimal zone of arousal where you can function most effectively, and you can think, feel, and connect simultaneously. Above the window, there is a hyperarousal where panic, rage, overwhelm, hypervigilance, racing thoughts, and the system is overactivated. Fight or flight is engaged. And below the window, there is a hyperarousal where numbness, shutdown, dissociation, exhaustion, depression, disconnection might take place. The system has collapsed. Then inside the window, when a person is regulated, present, can focus, can work, able to process experience without being overwhelmed or shutting down. And in trauma, chronic stress and developmental adversity all narrow this window, and the person gets thrown out of these triggers by smaller and smaller triggers, and returning back to normal takes longer and longer. And the goal of emotional regulation work from this perspective is widening the window and being able to return to the window easier and faster, so you can tolerate more without losing your footing. So what narrows the window? Understanding what narrows window would help you to protect it. Uh, First of one of main reasons is sleep deprivation. If you are overworking or have sleeping challenges, this can considerably worsen sensitivity. And according to Matthew Walker's research, one night of poor sleep increases amygdala reactivity by 60%, and the window narrows dramatically when you are sleep deprived. And hunger and blood sugar instability can also cause challenges. Low blood sugar amplifies emotional reactivity. Eating regularly protects regulation capacity. Chronic stress is another reason that worsens cortisol exposure and keeps the system in a semi-activated state, narrowing the window over time. And the third reason is isolation. So lack of social connection, staying alone, is one of most powerful regulators of autonomic nervous system. Without social connection, the window narrows. And trauma triggers, reminders of past trauma, can instantly narrow the window, even when person is not consciously aware of the connection or association with it. So what can help to widen the window and increase the tolerance? First of all, the good news is that the window can be widened and through consistent intentional practices, psychotherapy. First of all, one of most efficient strategies used is mindfulness. Using regular mindfulness practices strengthens prefrontal cortex and regulation of amygdala, directly widening the window. Physical movement was found to increase uh, increased tolerance. Exercising burns stress hormones, increases BDNF, and builds psychological resilience. And secure attachment co-regulation, being in the presence of regulated, caring other, literally regulates your nervous system through mirror neurons and vagal resonance. And trauma processing, working through unresolved trauma with professional support reduces the number of triggers that throw you out of window. And also consistent sleep, prioritizing your sleep is one of highest leverage interventions for widening the window over time. And rejection sensitive dysphoria, uh, I want to spend some time on a concept that's profoundly important and largely known as rejection sensitivity dysphoria, or RSD. It was described by ADHD researcher William Dodson. RSD refers to extreme emotional pain triggered by perceived or real rejection, criticism, failure, or teasing. And the keyword is extreme, not ordinary disappointment or hurt. And people feel extremely overwhelming, extremely pain, instantaneous pain that can feel unbearable. And people with RCD often describe it as, it feels like my heart is being ripped out, I can't think of anything else. It ruins my entire day, and it's difficult to come back to normal. And reaction feels completely out of proportion, and I know that, but I can't stop it. So RCD is also prevalent in ADHD, though it's not limited to. And research by Dodson also suggests that up to 99% of adults with ADHD also experience significant levels of RSD. And crucially, RSD is often the most impairing aspect of ADHD, more than inattention or hyperactivity, because it drives people-pleasing behavior. It can considerably impact relationships, work, when people are trying to avoid criticism that makes it feel so painful, and avoidance of situations where failure or rejection is possible, and significant relationship again difficulties problem, and in severe cases it can also lead to suicide ideation triggered by perceived rejection. And if it is combined, if a person is already has neurobiologically has ADHD symptoms, and if it's combined with trauma, it can be even complicated more and can be felt even stronger. And if this resonates, please know that this is not a character flaw, it's a neurobiological feature of how your brain processes threat, and it can be addressed and decreased, and you can learn to manage it better. So what are some strategies that might help? There are several approaches that have evidence-based proof. One of the simplest ones is naming the moment, reminding yourself that this is caused by neurobiological reasons, and this might be RCD, and that this pain is real, and it's not an accurate reflection of reality all the time. So this might help you to become aware of moments where rejection is not real, and or people are not really doing something in order to make you feel this way, and separating intensity of the feeling from its informational value can help you to come back easier to normal state, and over time to have lesser symptoms. The second one is delaying response, creating a pause between the trigger and the response, not acting on the feeling while it's at peak intensity. And also, if the doctor or your professional has recommended, using medications can be an option. Psychotherapy considerably helps to decrease it, specifically addressing cognitive patterns that amplify rejection sensitivity. And also self-compassion was found to decrease its symptoms and intensity. And another strategy that is found highly efficient is TIPP skills. When you are completely overwhelmed, flooded, cognitive strategies might not work. At this case, you can try to use these strategies? It's because prefrontal cortex is offline and you need to work at the physiological level first. So what does TIPP mean? T means temperature, submerging your face or hands or neck in a cold water, ice, and a dive reflex activates heart rate, slows dramatically within seconds, and it's also effective for panic, rage, intense urges. Second one is I, intense exercise, 10 minutes of vigorous physical activity, burns stress hormones, running, jumping jacks, burpees, and P is paced breathing, and also breathing exercises are considerably decreasing symptoms. And progressive muscle relaxation is another strategy that can be learned and used. And regulating then relate protocol is another protocol that can be used. It's specifically for emotional dysregulation in context of relationships, one of places where dysregulation causes the most damage. First of all, recognizing it, noticing that you are dysregulated, and noticing the signs. This can be heart rate, tunnel vision, inability to hear the other person, urge to flee or attack. And second one is signal, telling the other person, I'm flooded, I need a break, I'll be back in 20 minutes, and giving a break and calming down. And it's not an avoidance as responsible regulation. And by time, if you are able to explain these challenges that you are having, a person might be easier for them to understand what you are experiencing, and this will not be so damaging for your relationships. And third one is regulating during the break, doing something genuinely calming, not ruminating on the argument, physical movement, breathing, or distraction, and relating, returning when genuinely regulated, not before, and approaching conversation with curiosity rather than defense. According to John Gottman's research, uh, about around 70% of relationship conflicts are perpetual and they don't get solved, but they can be navigated by emotional regulation. And couples who repair dysregulation effectively and repair quickly have significantly better outcomes. Can children have emotion or dysregulation problems? Yes, and early identification and support is crucial. Children with ADHD, early trauma, neurodevelopmental differences often show significant dysregulation, and parent-child interaction therapy, DBT adapted for adolescents, emotional coaching, solution-focused brief therapy, ACT uh, approaches are all evidence-based, and the earlier support is provided. If your partner is emotionally dysregulated, uh, how can you help? You are asking. The most important thing is that regulate yourself first. You cannot co-regulate from a dysregulated state, and validating their emotion without agreeing with all their interpretation, or not engaging in the content of a conflict when either of you is flooded. And encouraging professional support is also important. Is dysregulation permanent? No, the nervous system remains plastic throughout the life, and therapy is one of strong evidence for significant reduction of dysregulation, even in severe cases, and trauma processing reduces reactivity of amygdala. This window of tolerance can be widened, and there are a wide variety of different strategies that you can use for these purposes. And change is genuinely possible, though it takes time and consistent practice. So, emotional dysregulation exists on a spectrum from everyday overwhelm to clinically significant impairment, and biosocial theory explains why some people struggle more without pathologizing them, and the window of tolerance gives us a map, a roadmap, and a target on what can be done, how it can be improved, how we can support people, how we can take care of them if they are experiencing these challenges. And I want to say something directly. If you recognized yourself significantly in today's context, in the intensity or difficulty returning to baseline in the RCD, please consider reaching out for professional support. Dysregulation is not your fault and it's not your destiny. Like, share, and subscribe. Write in the comments which tool resonates most with you. You can also share your experiences or challenges with using the strategies I have shared with you. And don't forget to subscribe and share it with the people who might benefit from it. Take good care of yourself and see you in the next videos again.